Okay, welcome. So I want to start with just 2 minutes of sitting and allowing. We don't have to do anything specific, just allowing whatever arises. You can use labeling if you want, but you also don't have to. You can just sit and see what emerges in the conscious experience. So let's close down the eyes. And just starting from where we are. Okay, and then opening the eyes again. So for those who joined during that, we just did 2 minutes of kind of unguided, unstructured, see what arises. So I'm curious what arose for people. Maybe Sarah, what appeared in the 2 minutes? Anything is correct.
Some worry, both physical and in my mind. I have things, a lot of things happening this week, and like I have that feeling in my body.
Right. Where in the body?
Yes, in my chest mostly,
and
also stomach.
Was pleasant or unpleasant or neutral?
Unpleasant.
Yes. Unpleasant. Was there also some other more neutral things happening?
Yes, definitely. Like feeling sitting and some memories, visual memories from the day before.
Great.
Was neutral. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. So many different things. Some unpleasant, yes. Some neutral. Yeah. Great. Maybe Mar, what appeared for you in the 2 minutes?
Yes. Thoughts. The thoughts that are planning my day. And relaxation.
Relaxation. In the body or the mind?
In the body.
Where in the body?
Like a pleasant, I feel it in my um, around my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And the feeling of relaxation in the body and the thoughts, were they continuous throughout, or kind of like a little bit thought, a little bit of feeling of body, a little bit of thought, or was it kind of both same time all the time?
When I realized that my thoughts were taking the show, and then I put my attention on my body sensations,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and I realized that actually I'm relaxed. Even my thoughts were giving me a lot of comfort.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Nice. Yeah. So different things appearing. We have the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and whenever we start paying attention to what's appearing naturally, we see maybe some split there. So sometimes there's more, the body is more prominent. Maybe there's some percent, let's say in the 2-minute window, there was some percentage split. So maybe body was 50% or 70% of appearances. And then maybe the mind was 20%. Sometimes the mind is more prominent, 70%. For Sarah, there was also this unpleasant feeling tone, which was more prominent. Sometimes the unpleasant feeling of it takes the front stage. Sometimes it's more the body sensation which takes the front stage. Maybe if the feeling more neutral, maybe the mind takes more front stage. But all these things appearing on their own, and really depending on also like our state of mind, what we did maybe in the last hour or so, and this almost kind of carries some momentum forwards into this moment. So the experience we have in this moment is determined by the cause and effect of course our whole life, but also the last hour and maybe the last few weeks, what you've been thinking about more. And now with some already 4 weeks into our practice, we can start to see this. Now we start to see, today is a little bit more worry, today is more feeling in the body, whatever is appearing. And it was also interesting, Mar, how you were saying like, you noticed the thoughts taking front stage, and then you directed your awareness more towards the body, if I heard right. So we can more consciously do that, like, okay, let's more thoughts, okay, we consciously bring back to the body, or we can also allow it more naturally to happen. So it appearing, and then suddenly again the feeling in the body appears without us having to direct the feeling towards the body. So either is okay. We sometimes it's nice to bring it more consciously back to the body if we feel getting lost. Sometimes actually, because we have momentum in body awareness, we just notice the body more automatically. Someone's drawing some stuff on the page. Nice. Yes. So these things appearing, and I would like to ask maybe one more person, or maybe a volunteer. Would anyone like to share what appeared in 2 minutes? I will pick on someone otherwise. Okay. Russell, what appeared for you?
I'm afraid I was wandering around the house trying to search for a part where I could get Wi-Fi. So I.
Excellent. Okay, what appeared while you were wandering around the house? What did you notice?
I noticed that I didn't know where the best spot was, and I was I couldn't hear, so it was just going in and out. So I knew you were doing something, but it went out. So I just and there's no one else in the house awake, so I was trying to be very, very quiet as I was moving through the house.
Did you notice, like, so now you're talking more a little bit about the content? did you notice also some like there's like a sensation in the body, like when you were moving around the house, or did you feel maybe some rushing or some worry, or was it more neutral? Did you notice anything like this?
Quite neutral, quite soft, moving around the house. Yeah, quite soft and careful, kind of.
So maybe also not automatically being a bit more aware because you were trying to be quiet and. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So all things always appearing, even if we're not intentionally paying attention, things are always appearing. And maybe now there's a little bit more this feeling of you're always watching what's happening, because we are doing this practice now for 4 weeks. Maybe there's always a little part of your mind which is just watching what's appearing. Oh, there's a bit more worry, a bit more thought, and of course we go into the story, into the content of the things, but maybe sometimes there's some meta awareness. Thanks for sharing, Russell.
Probably
good.
A little bit of worry also.
Worry. Okay. Nice.
Like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to get on.
And did you notice the worry? Like, do you remember it now, or when the worry was happening, did you recognize, this is worry? Or you were more remembering?
I think I'm remembering now. I did notice it a little bit then, but not in a fully mindful way. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Great. So yeah, this is also really special. So as we practice our mindfulness, so in the beginning, when we start mindfulness to kind of like just intend to be more aware of the present moment and what's appearing, it's almost like we play catch up. So things happen, and then like maybe a few seconds later, I realized I was thinking. I realized I was feeling a body sensation. I realized I was worrying, or so there's, let's say, like a little bit of a delay, or the mindfulness is after. And now the focus. And when we practice this more, it's almost like the mindfulness, and of course at times better than others, can see it more in real time. So rather than being delayed or after the fact, the mindfulness starts to see it more, maybe just in the end of it, or maybe even during, when it's appearing, you can start seeing it. So more starts to happen in real time. And this is really also what we're trying to what we're trying to train here, to make our mindfulness more in real time, just so we see things as the moment they appear. And this, when we really notice when the things appear, also even when they just start appearing, when we have the mindfulness of it, then the things don't get the chance as much to develop. So usually we see them after, I was worrying for the last, maybe it was 30 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 1 minute, then 10 seconds of worrying before you catch yourself, this is worrying. So and if you catch it really the moment it arises, it instantly, it's almost like it doesn't have as much stickiness or as much momentum in the mind for it to take hold and take over your experience as much. Okay. So that was a little prelude. So this week I want to talk a little bit about the Mind Foundation, which is what we've been practicing for this past week, a little bit more, to pay more attention to how this mind is working, how it's constantly, probably a lot of you notice that it's constantly working. It's almost like incessant thinking, analyzing, judging, worrying, past, future, thinking about the present, and the mind is always appearing in every moment, and that's okay. This is the nature, but we're just learning to observe this more. And of course it's a bit more tricky with the mind than it is with the body. The body is kind of, you can feel it, the sensations happening present moment. If you touch yourself, touch the floor, this is appearing right now, so it's easy. But the mind is more complex, so it's more difficult to observe that clearly. Okay. So chitta. Chitta is the Pali word for actually heart mind. So they see the mind as the heart and the mind as one thing. They don't separate those things, the heart and the mind. And so we have the body. We already know the body, the feeling tone, and the mind, chitta. So this is an analogy, so don't take it too literally, but just to kind of help you understand a little bit what is the domain of mind and what is the domain of body. So it's a little bit like a computer, and the body is the hardware. So it's all the processing, it's all the inputs, the keypad, the keyboard. So it's really the hardware, the things that can interact with the outside world. So if you have your computer in front of you, your iPhone in front of you, and when you interact with it, the outside world, the reality is interacting. And it's the same with the body, and the body interacts with the outside world. And the mind is kind of like what comes after. So with this raw sensory data that comes in as neural signals, electronic signals, the mind starts to layer on information and layer on meaning and compound and, process information, sort out what's important, and create concepts. So it's really like the software, and it's a very intelligent software. So very, it's a very advanced AI, so to speak, which is learning constantly, is predicting the future, is predicting the moment. And when the prediction doesn't match the reality, usually there's some kind of like, oh, what's happening? And usually maybe like if you get surprised or something, and then your nervous system is a little bit more, oh, something is up. But usually, you can notice this when you walk around your house or something. It's so unconscious, you've done it so many million times that the mind doesn't have to be engaged in doing it. So the mind is like the software and the body is like the hardware. And to give an analogy to the feeling tone is like the magnitude of the signal. So when it's a strongly unpleasant signal, like a pain signal, the mind is more alerted. If it's a strongly pleasant signal, likewise, the mind is more alerted. If it's a more neutral thing, then mind is not as alerted. So the whole point, what we're doing is to reduce suffering and to try to be more happy. So of course we have suffering and happiness of the body, the natural things that feel unpleasant and pleasant, like hitting our knee is painful, not eating for a while, we start to feel some uncomfortable sensation in the belly. And there's naturally things that make us also happy in the body, that release some nice dopamine, some serotonin. If someone touches you, maybe massage or whatever you like, maybe relaxing the body is more pleasant. So we have these natural things in the body which happy and unhappy, and that is nature. We're not trying to stop that. The mind also has this. So the mind also has natural things make it happy and natural things which make it unhappy. But then there's also kind of the unnatural sources of suffering, a lot of our ideas. And really in the mind is where a lot of agony, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worriness, a lot of these very unpleasant states that we sometimes go into, depressive states, anxious states, etc. And they are really in the mind, and it's always related to our ideas, our expectations, our desires. So in general, when we get what we want, the mind happy. In general, when we don't get what we want or what we expect, then the mind unhappy. So, for example, the idea of this call. So we can have a nice idea of this call. We are all meeting together and we are all practitioners on the path, and we all like to work on ourselves, and we're all coming together and spending our valuable time to be together and learn about ourselves, and also to be with some lovely people from all over the world. How amazing is that? So that's one idea, and it's a pleasant idea, you know, it makes us feel instantly a little bit more, yeah, it's great. But then we can also frame it like, we are wasting our Sunday morning or afternoon spending time on the computer. I spent the whole week on the computer. Why am I spending my Sunday morning on the computer? And yeah, this is kind of a waste of time, 1.5 hours. I bet he could just maybe write this down or something and send a more concise version. Why am I here? So another idea, and instantly maybe less feeling of positivity, and maybe more feeling of this. Yeah, it's right. This kind of sucks. Why am I not outside? So our idea, what idea we have, and what our expectation, what image we paint in the mind, can really influence so strongly our reality, our experience of suffering or happiness. And this is just a small example, but this is happening all the time. So we need to be careful with the mind. It can create a lot more suffering, a lot more happiness. And the suffering and the happiness, they come from the same source, our ideas. So, yes. So we are in Vipassana meditation, we are trying to learn how this process works. What ideas, what patterns, what processes, what reactions cause us to go more towards suffering, what of those ideas, expectations, desires, etc., cause us more to go towards happiness. And of course, happiness is nice. And at the same time, we're also cultivating freedom from both. So we're trying to be less suffering, more happy, but also to be free from happiness. So to know how to use happiness, but not to be attached to it, not to be super upset when it goes, and just letting happiness come, letting happiness go. To use an analogy, happiness would be analogous to money. So we are learning how to use money, and we're also learning how to be free from money. Being free from money doesn't mean to not have money. It means to not be upset when money is not there. So we know how to use money. We know how to navigate the financial system, etc., economy, how to use money. But also we can sleep in a hostel. We don't have to sleep in a 5-star hotel or something. So we are maintaining this flexibility, this knowing how to use it. And yeah, nice to sleep in the 5-star thing, but also not attached to it. So I can also sleep in the hostel. So this is a little bit like what we are doing. Okay, let's just check. Yeah, an example of this, how powerful the mind is our dreams. So our dreams are completely mind created, yes. And our mind really has this power to completely simulate our whole reality. Like it can take information from all the senses and rebuild all the senses and create imagined senses, the imagination of senses, the delusion of senses. So in the dream, it can create the hearing, the feeling, even the tasting, the seeing, and it can create such a vivid simulation or experience of reality that in that dream, you know, if you've had bad dreams before, that dream can be ultimate suffering, or if you had really positive dreams, the dream can also be very, very happy. So it's a little bit like that. The mind has such a power, and actually this is happening in every moment. The mind is constructing our reality from the body, from the information that it gets from the senses, and is constructing the image. And if we are in a more neutral space and safe, etc., usually it's quite okay. You know, we're scanning the environment and building this thing of here's the computer, here's the bed, here's the room, there's space here, and something I hear in the background, the car is over there, etc. But if we can learn to really just be with senses before the mind comes in, we notice, the hearing is just appearing in the ear, the feeling appearing in the body, the seeing is appearing in the eye, and before the mind puts it out there. Okay. So since when we were, the moment we were born, or yeah, probably even before, when we were created in our first nuclear and our first senses start to develop, this organism that we are started to sense and feel the environment. First you were in your mom's belly and you were feeling the warmth and the heartbeat and maybe your mom's emotion or sounds, etc., and sensing. And then so we have our senses, and then the mind started to interpret, started to layer on things. This means good, this means bad. And okay, let's say we come out of the womb, and then it feels good to be hugged by mom and I like it and I stop crying, or it feels unpleasant to be left alone and there's bright lights, or I don't like it, I cry. And so we start to give meaning. The mind starts learning and layer on meaning to the sense information that we get. And more we layered on meaning. We grew up as children, teenager, adults, and we built our whole personality, our self. When we're a baby, the babies don't recognize themselves until about 1 year or something. So we start to build this image from this visual information, from this hearing information, from people interacting with me, etc. I start to build, yeah, okay, I am Raimar and I'm a teenager, and okay, now I'm an adult and I teach meditation and I dance and I like to Vipassana and I like to take walks in nature, and this is my personality, and here's the things I like, here's the things I don't like. So the mind constructs the reality, the self, the other, etc. So learning, and this is wonderful. It's a beautiful thing that we can do this, but also has a lot of potential for things that can make us suffer, because this is a learned process. It's not the way we view reality is not necessarily always accurate. Maybe most of the time it's accurate, but sometimes we really get some stuff wrong, like especially when we're very in a triggered emotional state. These times when we feel very upset, or I was very confused the other day because I arrived here in this hostel, and first the room I was in with a friend was very dark and kind of like not very nice, and I didn't really realize this. I felt a bit confused and lost, and it's almost like my whole reality became more, I couldn't really see it so clearly, and I was a bit annoyed. I wasn't sure if I was annoyed at my friend or the room, until I realized, okay, it's nice to switch to a nicer room. So we can really get covered in this cloud of the mind. So to make this a little bit more tangible, I'm going to try to make my examples more tangible after the last session with the wonderful cookie example. So we have our 1 hour meditation, and our 1 hour meditation is made out of many different appearances, which are appearing moment to moment. Feeling of the body, sound, thought, sound, body, and breathing, rising, falling, sitting, hearing, unpleasant, impatient thought of future, worrying, planning. I have to remember to go back to the body, back to the body, sitting, feeling, whatever. So a 1 hour meditation is so many different phenomena occurring: mind, body, mind, body, mind, body, mind, body. But now when we try to, so the mind can start to classify these things. So we're doing a little bit of that by looking a bit closer at what's happening, rather than, I'm sitting here and this is boring. We just start to see more moment to moment what's happening. So we kind of build layers. There's boredom, there's a walking sensation, there's thinking, hearing, remembering, etc. And when we are kind of out of the meditation, and Russell was sharing last time that before he starts meditating, you feel like some unpleasantness or some, I don't really want to do it or something. So before you start meditating, the mind kind of puts that whole hour into one box, and it's like, meditation is boring and I don't like it, I don't really want to do it. But then actually when we start to meditate, we see this meditation is just different appearances. And sometimes we go more into the grosser, more aggregated states of this is boring and I don't like it. And sometimes we go more into the subtle of like just sensing, these thoughts appearing, and we can sense it more in real time. But we're always modulating between these kind of levels, sometimes more aggregated, bigger, solidified concepts of what's happening, sometimes more this breaking it down into deconstructing it into the more actual moment-to-moment experience. And and this is happening the whole time. So when we think about what we're going to have for lunch today, and we think, I'm going to go to a nice restaurant, my favorite restaurant, and I'm going to eat this thing that I like, and it becomes one blob in the mind. Okay, lunch is going to be nice because I'm going to eat some nice salad that I like. But if we actually bring in mindfulness into that experience of what lunch is, and just start to realize and pay attention to what the experience of lunch is, there is actually a lot of other stuff there. There's a lot of neutral things. Maybe there's some unpleasant things. Even if you bring mindfulness to eating, you'll notice the process of eating isn't like one thing. It's like, there's a sensation of chewing. There's a sensation of taste. There's some planning of what thing I'm going to combine on my spoon next. Okay, now I'm reaching with my spoon. Okay, now my mind is imagining what these flavors will be like and selecting the flavor. Okay, now I move it into my mind, and then I start tasting, and maybe there's tasting, then some sensation of chomping, nom nom, then my tongue is moving, and now it's on the left side of the jaw, and I'm munching, and then maybe I'm already thinking about what the next bite should be, and then maybe my attention goes somewhere else. So you get the idea. It's many different things appearing. So I invite you to try this if you want. Try to see what process of eating is. And the further we go down the hierarchy, so when we go really just into the moment-to-moment experience of things, the things lose. So like more in this level, things kind of completely lose their meaning. So actually, if we're too mindful while eating, we won't actually have a very pleasant experience. It will be neutral all the way through because it's just the neutral occurrences. If we go a little bit higher up the hierarchy and allow more, the idea of this is a pleasant thing, and I like doing this, and this is a nice meal, and I focus maybe more on the pleasant sensation, it becomes a bit more of an emotional experience. But maybe if we go too far up, it becomes too gross again. So it becomes, maybe then you are thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, or planning, and then you realize, like with the cookie thing, you realize, I just ate 4 cookies and I didn't even taste the cookie at all. So the mind kind of like brings us into a more solid way of perceiving reality. And yeah, the idea is not to always exist in this upper low hierarchy state, so this very dissolved, deconstructed way of experiencing, but it's more to have the option. So in that place, there's freedom. In that place, things don't really have as much meaning, especially when suffering is more here. A lot of suffering, a lot of happiness is at the aggregated level. But if suffering starts to happen, then we can deconstruct it, notice, there's just unpleasant sensation, this is just feeling, this contraction, this is worry, whatever, and we can move up and down at will and learn how to use this, and not always be stuck in this big layer of meaning. And I feel happy when something happens on the outside, I feel unhappy when something happens on the outside. Okay. So yeah, the mind essentially fabricates, solidifies reality. And most of the time we live in our ideas of things rather than in the actual experience of things. And the higher up this hierarchy you go, so the more you go into the solidified things, usually there's more craving and more aversion, more clinging in the mind. So when we think about something very unpleasant, it becomes and we don't want it to happen, becomes very solid and sticky in the mind. And it kind of like, the more we don't want it to be, the more it kind of sticks close to us. And with the pleasant things, the more we kind of think about the pleasant things and how much we want them, and we solidify them into a thing, it's almost they seem further and more separate from us. So you can just use this meditation, this mindfulness, to not allow the things to be as solid as you think they may be. You can also call this the thingness of things, how much things become a thing versus just a process. How much Raimar is a solid entity that's separate from the world and is trying to get happiness and avoid pain, or how much is Raimar just a process of feeling, sensations, thinking, hearing, feeling, body, mind, etc. Are there any questions about that? Maybe I'll pause there.
Just I wonder when you're trying to break it down, I find sometimes, nearly losing focus and having too many things going on, a bit overwhelming. So yeah, maybe there is a middle way, there is a some sort of trade-off of where you're going, in mindfulness. Like you said, if you go too low, well, I don't know, you said when you go too low, it should be more neutral, but I think it can also get more complex and potentially overwhelming.
So what I would, so yeah, we can't force it too quickly. And if we force it too quickly, actually, we create some solidity that we don't see. So let's say I'm really trying super hard to deconstruct my body and all the sensation in my body. But then maybe there's something in my mind, like, for example, as you mentioned, the feeling of overwhelm is actually an appearance in my conscious experience. But because I'm trying too hard to deconstruct something else, I don't see this solid thing of overwhelm, overwhelm, or things are messy. That's actually a feeling appearing in the mind body, and that we're not seeing. So what we're trying to deconstruct there, but what we actually need to recognize is, this feeling is also here, which actually I need to see first before I can move further into deconstructing the things. So we can't rush it. It happens by itself, actually, just as we pay attention. It happens by itself. If we rush it, there's clinging, there's craving for something else, or there's aversion towards this overwhelm or something, and that again solidifies something that we usually miss or don't see. And for me, when there's a really, and this comes and goes, kind of, I can't really control it as much, but let's say like when I was 3 months in the monastery, and then in my more intensive retreats when there's not much happening and I can really go into the subtle, but there's nothing there actually. It's appearances moment to moment, and maybe sometimes there's overwhelm, like, oh my god, nothing has meaning and blah blah, but then I recognize that's just thinking or a feeling of overwhelm that's appearing, and then again goes more. So it's hard to wrap your head around because it's literally all of experience, and usually we are looking at experience like I'm here and experience is here and looking at it, but actually this also is part of it. I will talk a little bit about this in the end, but yeah, thank you for
Thanks.
One thing. Yeah.
I had a question regarding I feel it's very easy to start, deconstructing the negative stuff and just holding on to the positive. So it's like very natural for me to, seek pleasure and be happy and try to be, in the moments where I'm happy, I don't do anything about it and I feel happy. But in the moments where I don't feel happy or there's something that's bothering me, it's like easy to, okay, well, it's not that important, and you can start like deconstructing things. But I have a feeling that that's also maybe not, you know, it's then it's very easy to rule out all the negative stuff and like suppress it, and then you have all the good things. But I have a feeling that that's not really constructive in some way, or you understand what I mean?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. The things are two sides of the same coin. The happiness and suffer is in the same place. It's already, but I do this also, like more in daily life. Like when I feel happy, I don't use mindfulness as strongly. When I feel unhappy, I'm more like, okay, let's switch it on. But what I would suggest is during the meditation hour, like for that period, really do it to all, like mindfulness of everything, even the pleasant, even when you have some inspiring, nice thoughts about what to do, just notice thinking. Don't go much into that, because it's a too what's that word? Double-edged sword. Double-edged sword. Like the more you go into that, and cling to that and let it solidify, the more then also when that is absent, there will be some, why is it not happening now? But yeah, in daily life, you don't have to be too serious about this, and allow joy to come. And a little bit of mindfulness is always helpful, like a little bit of like, okay, a little bit of body, a little bit of, will keep you also more grounded in the happiness and the joy that's coming. Like I dance also a lot, and when I'm dancing, definitely using mindfulness, but not as intensely, because if I use it intensely, then I would not be dancing, because then I would just like not follow anything. So this is something you have to learn, like when to use it more, when less, and modulate for yourself, and experience what happens when you don't deconstruct, etc. Also. Thank you. Wan Qing, you raised your hand.
No, I just want to say that, I mean, that slide that we just went through with the dots and the black box, I think it's one of the most important things that I've ever learned. I mean, just for me, it's, you know, to see it that way, it's so liberating to know that, you know, I can have a choice about how to deal with, you know, the ups and downs of life, all your thoughts. And I remember you said to me once when you started meditating a lot that, wow, Mom, how can you not want to meditate? Because it's the most important thing, you know, ever to learn. And I didn't get it then. And now I get it. I mean, it's not to say that I'm good at it. And I realized that I have to practice it. But this slide is just amazing.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing, Mom. Yeah, this is really the freedom. This is freedom, like when we have the choice. And this, of course, this is the process. Like I also can't, for me, it's figuring out when do I go into these boxes, into these solid ideas of things, and noticing those, because before I don't even notice them. And then you realize your default mode goes more into the more subtle way, and you know, but it's also, yeah, it's being able to play in all those. Like for example, when I went back to Germany, so I was in Germany over Christmas with the fam, with my mom and brothers, etc. And you know, playing card games, and then I would just come from 3 months of monastery, and then I was really more super sensitive, and my sister was like kind of like using more banter and like being quite like sometimes cynical, and using harsh comments and insulting people and arguing and stuff. And first I was like so taken aback because it was so sensitive. But then I realized, I actually have the choice to also go more into that and go more into this black box. And like, yeah, you stop cheating, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, to have the freedom essentially. Yeah. Thank you, Mom, for sharing. Okay. Let's move on. So, okay. So this is another perspective on this thing. So usually in our day-to-day things, we have this kind of ongoing narrative, this story that we tell ourselves, and we're existing essentially in this black box thing if we don't have some experience in mindfulness or whatever. So it's like, I'm Reimer, I wake up in the morning, today I feel a bit tired because yesterday I didn't go to sleep. Okay, let's get up, and I need to have a coffee now, and let me have a coffee and maybe I'll feel better. Okay, now I feel a bit more energized. Okay, let's work, and no, okay, now I'm gonna get something nice to eat, and then while I'm eating, I'm gonna think about what blah 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 blah. So we exist in this solid line, and it's up and down, and sometimes happy, sometimes unhappy, whatever. And the narrative is really prominent. So we exist in this story, and the story is the way we also perceive everything that's happening. It's like having very colored glasses on. If you're happy, the colored glasses are super green. If you're bright or whatever, if you're unhappy, they're really red, and you see everything in this red light. So this is our story. And when we can start to just interrupt this process a little bit with some moments of, okay, this is just the body. This is just thinking. This is just worry. Of course, the story continues, and you can see this in the meditation. You have your, when you sit down, when you walk, when you sit, there's this narrative going on. This meditation is going quite well. Now I'm a bit impatient. It's not going so well. Blah 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 blah. Now how much time is left, etc. But we interrupt this process a little bit, and then in those moments of mindfulness, of just seeing the thing, it kind of they're not, there's no meaning there. It's just the mind and the body. But then it goes back to the narrative, but it weakens a little bit. So here the line is a bit thicker, weakens a little bit this continuous narrative, and then we can even do it more. And then actually the mindfulness starts to interrupt the narrative and starts to shift it and so here's when it also impacts our life a lot, when now instead of noticing the worry after, I notice it like more early. I notice the worry maybe after 10 seconds, or when it just starts happening, and it doesn't go there as much. And this narrative becomes a bit weaker, and there's more moments of just mind and body, more moments of meaningless, just mind and body. And when we learn really to make this more continuous, actually the things almost completely lose their meaning. So sometimes I start before I start meditating, then it'll be okay, this is 1 hour, okay, let's try and do this. I'm not feeling so good right now, and then just start, and then past, future, those are just ideas, and then thinking, walking, sitting, it just present moment, and then the gong goes, and okay, just what just happened, I have no idea. And actually when this is like very intense, and really the mindfulness is like catching a lot of things that are happening, there's even no memory that appears. There's no, you don't, like, there was some retreat I did where really, like, I can't remember actually what happened in that. It was just, the memory is not formed, the idea is not, the mind is not processing the information in the same way of from this view of I'm Reimer and I'm experiencing this. No, it's just becoming appearances moment to moment, but not necessarily to go there to it's not really how I want to live my life either, just in this completely meaningless, everything is empty and just appearing state, but is learning the flexibility, the freedom to have the option. Yes. So this is really what Vipassana is about. So maybe we're getting more of an idea. And yeah, this is also like a few years of synthesizing what I feel now that this practice is, and I'm probably a little bit wrong, but we're moving from misunderstanding of the way things are. I am this thing in the world, and the world is my source of happiness, my source of suffering, and everything is happening out there. And then continuous story of blah, blah, blah. To wisdom, actually, it's just mind and body. And I have the choice now, okay, to switch mind and body. And then, okay, now I go more into the narrative, into playing Reimer, into being meditation teacher. And actually now I can see more how this process works of being a teacher, and I can see more where I suffer more, when I get more worried, etc. And because I also have mindfulness, so it also helps in the relative sense, to see more. But then I also to be free from suffering, to be more happy, and also to be free from both suffering and happiness, to have the option to go into just mind and body. So this is what they refer to when they say wisdom or insight, or this is what we're moving from: more misunderstanding, delusions, I'm solid, separate, self, etc. to okay, this is just mind and body. So that's the background. So here we go now more a little bit into how to do it. So we are practicing mindfulness together. First step, mind-body separation. The first step, we need to learn how to, and probably a lot of you are already there, to learn how to see in this way. There's no past, no future. It's just present moment, and it's just appearing. My thought, there's a feeling of, there's a future, and then I recognize, that is just a thought about planning the future, and it's just a creation right now appearing. And you just have to do this once in a while. And then as you start to do this more often, you start to see how the things influence each other. You start to see, this thought of the worry causes some feeling in my belly. Relaxed feeling in my belly causes some more relaxation in the mind. The sound that I just heard of the car creates the imagination of what that car might look like. I'm hearing now a rooster, and then a picture of the rooster appears in my mind, even though I've never actually seen that rooster which is crowing, but my mind is associating and creating the image of what's appearing around me. So we see that more. And of course, in between, there's still the narrative, but that's okay. It's the nature. So the third stage in the progress of insight is the mind and body begins and ends. So we start seeing the mind and body more clearly, and we recognize that the mind and body always begins and ends. They are not the same thing. They are always appearing and going. The sound appeared and gone. The worry appeared and disappeared. And this is more when our mindfulness starts to go more and see the things more in real time, rather than kind of like so long. When we see it long after, we only realize, I was thinking, but we don't see the process of, the thinking arises, the thinking passes, the sound arises, the sound passes, because we kind of catch it after. I just heard a sound like a second ago, or I just thought about something. But as we see it more in real time, we see more beginning, end. So it's a little bit like, we don't have to force this. This is just like repeatedly seeing mind body, but it's more like, for those of you mathematically inclined, it's like taking the derivative of experience. Rather than being caught in the content of experience, we just see the rate of change. The change. And that takes more the forefront. So maybe you have some minutes in meditation where this is already happening, where there's such clear mindfulness that the things appearing by themselves, you're not moving your attention consciously, it just appear and goes, appear and goes, appear and goes. Sometimes things appear and stay a bit longer. This thought goes for 10 seconds and then goes. And then appear and goes, appear and goes. So this is what starts to happen when we have, and this, just to say, this progress of insight thing is not like something that we like pass forever. It's not like, now I'm level 3 forever. No, we kind of have to start again over and over again. So it's like, now I'm more in the story of I'm Raimar and I'm talking to you, and then, okay, let me just mindfulness. Okay, then I feel clearly the sitting. Then, okay, I recognize the mind body. And I maybe do that for a bit. Okay, now I see how the emotion, the thought, the feeling, and then maybe it becomes more just disappearing. And actually, when this starts happening more, we don't care anymore what it is. It doesn't matter anymore whether it's mind or body or feelings or planning or worrying. It doesn't matter anymore. We just see it begin and end, begin and end, begin and end. But if this doesn't resonate, don't worry. Just keep mindfulness. We learn at every stage. It's not just this stage. And there's 16 stages, so there's a lot more stages. But these are these three, and then the fourth stage, which I'll introduce maybe next week or the week after, are the most important. Is where the most happens. So you could also see these stages as so as the power of mindfulness and concentration increases, we move through them, but also like this kind of solid thing, like a solid narrative, and then we move through them and we start to like, here we see the things begin and end, begin and end, or here we also see this begins and ends, begins and ends. But when there's this solid narrative, it seems like one continuous story. And that's why I also say in the meditation, when something is continuous and seems like a flow or something, this is not Vipassana anymore. Then we're going more into concentration, because concentration doesn't necessarily destroy that narrative or doesn't deconstruct that narrative. So we want to just deconstruct everything that appears. Andreas, you raised your hand, but now you stop. Do you want to say something?
No, I think you answered my question. It was more about, I notice when I'm meditating, I'm very distracted, but it all goes in loops. So it's like, it's like, I get distracted, I come back, and I get distracted, I come back, especially when I'm tired. It happens like, and I always tell myself, like, try to stay in the moment, try to stay in the moment. But at some point, I know it's not going to happen, so I just let it go and just, let myself float out of attention and just allow it to happen, and then coming back and just trying to be more aware of that. And I don't know if that's a little bit what you're talking about right now. So, but I think it is. Mm-hmm. But I don't know or is it like you're supposed to be mindful the whole time, like the attention should be there all the time?
We can't force that. We can't force that. We remember this thing I said about kind of these flashes, these snapshots we take. I said it in the second lecture, like kind of like a camera flash. Like we just flash mind and body at the moment. Okay, now there's sleepiness. Okay, and then maybe it's okay, it goes more into narrative, we get distracted, thinking, then I realize I'm thinking, just flash the picture. And just your focus is just to do that. We're not don't try to continuous mindfulness for 1 hour straight. This is very difficult and not how we approach it. So we more like flashes, okay, flashes, and then maybe once every few seconds, maybe every etc. And then the flashes start to get closer together, and then eventually it becomes more continuous. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. If you're more sleepy or something, and then it feels more like the narrative continues, and then maybe like okay, I was sleepy, or okay, it continues again. Tomorrow I should do this and that. I'm feeling sitting. Oh, I'm thinking. I'm sleeping, like that. Yes, Wan Ching.
In the third stage that you described, where it begins and ends, are you still noting, or do you let that go? That's my first question. The second question is, why do you start teaching meditation with Vipassana then, as opposed to, because that's not the same as this, that's more concentration, we're not breaking the narrative. Why did we start with that and not with this?
You mean the body scanning stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When this seems more important, I find.
Yeah, because yeah, it's a lot more. It's a good question. I asked myself also whether I should change the 10-day course to the noting technique. But my feeling is that I don't have a fixed conclusion on this, and I also super happy to hear feedback. But it takes more time, and it's much more difficult and subtle to explain the noting and how to label properly, etc. Because people think it's more like thinking and stuff, than something simple like body. But body scanning also actually does this. So actually the techniques merge at some point. In the beginning, it's quite separate, the different techniques, but they become the same thing. When you have established this moment to moment mindfulness of the body, effortless moment to moment mindfulness of the body, then you don't have to do the scan anymore. Actually, then things appear on the body, and you notice things appearing in the mind, and it's a continuous process of mind body, mind body, mind body, mind body. So they meet in the same place. And my feeling, or why I teach the body scanning first and the anapanasati, etc., is because it's more simple, and you actually need some basic level of concentration and mindfulness to even get this technique of labeling. And in the beginning, we're just building some concentration, and okay, let me bring some mindfulness, some awareness, and then we can start to sort things out. But yeah, if
And then
anyone
my first question.
the
My
first question,
about
can you just
freedom.
remind me what was the keyword?
When you're at the third stage, the mind, body, begin and end.
Are we still labeling?
Are you still labeling?
Yes, most of the time, yes. The labeling you can let it become faster and not as like thinking, but more like thinking, seeing, hearing, seeing, sitting, touching. But sometimes it's slow. So it's actually not the speed that counts. We can also see begin and end over something like longer, like right goes touch can also be. So it's actually not the duration, the short duration that counts. It can be like a bigger phenomena that begins and ends. So yes, I still use the labeling. And really when I feel the mindfulness becomes so strong and fast and effortless that that the labels get in the way more. So when the labels are getting in the way, then you can start to let go more of the labels. But then if you start more distracted again, etc., then you have to use the labels again. So actually most of the time I'm using labels. Yeah, good question. The fourth stage, you can't use labels anymore, because so these three stages, you still have hindrances, you still have thinking. The fourth stage, thinking disappears because the mindfulness is strong enough. Then you can't label anymore. But for these three, you need to label. And it's unlikely to hit the fourth stage unless you're meditating 6 to 8 hours a day for a few days continuously. Okay. But don't worry about fourth stage. Just, okay, these three are most important, and the fourth arises naturally. So yeah, we're taking a little bit more time, but it's good. So one key thing which I haven't really mentioned yet. Actually, okay, let's do this in the guided meditation. So let us close the eyes. Blurry, but let's close down the eyes. And just use a little bit of concentration more on the body. So just feeling more the body. And when you notice that there's thinking, feel that it is happening somewhere in the body. With every thought, there is some sensation also. Maybe it's in the head, or heart, or belly, or whatever. And if you don't feel it, sometimes very subtle, so just put it in the head. So it's almost like when you notice that when you're mindful of thinking, you just put the awareness in the head, like thinking appears inside the head, as opposed to putting it outside of your body. So staying within the framework of the body. And what also helps here is that when you hear, just put the hearing in your ear rather than putting it out there of where the perceived source is. Those sounds are appearing inside your ear. And you'll notice also your vision. So it's more easy with closed eyes, but just recognize that the vision is appearing in your eye. It's not appearing out there, a meter in front of you or whatever, but this black screen appearing in the spot of your eye. There is no distance there. It's appearing on the body. And the labels help. They just slow down your experience a little bit rather than trying to do it all at once. Just labels help some concentration. Okay, sitting, seeing, you bring your attention to the eyes. Hearing, you know, in the ear. And when thinking, you just put the attention just short in the mind or wherever you feel thinking. If you don't feel it, just put it in the head somewhere. Everything is appearing in the body, in or on the body. Okay, let's stop. You can open your eyes again. So maybe you felt what I was saying, maybe not at all, but it's okay. It's easier to do this with the seeing. So rather than putting the seeing out there, just put it here. So attention just goes here. When you label seeing, just put attention here. When you label hearing, you put attention here. And to give an example of this, take something around you that maybe has some scent, some smell. So maybe, okay, so maybe like can be anything like a book or anything which you feel has some smell. Okay. So smell, okay, first smell the thing and feel that your attention is in the where the object is. So you're trying to smell and you're smelling the object and you really have this object in mind and focusing on the object. Trying really to smell the object. The object is outside of your body. Okay, so and then after you try that, relax. And now, instead, smell, still place the object, same distance, etc., but smell inside your nose. So your attention is in the nose. You don't care where the object is. You hold it the same distance, and then you put the attention inside the nose. Okay. Anyone want to share what they felt?
I think it was more intense the second time round.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also noticed that with that smell, then some feeling comes up, whether I like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Anyone else?
I'm too occupied in my mind because it's like an exercise, and I know that I should be feeling, and yeah, I know I should be feeling and paying attention to what I'm feeling and sensing, and then it just gets a problem with my mind to actually feel and sense.
Okay. Thinking appearing, no worries. That's also fine. Russell, you were going to say something?
Yeah, just the one I'm much more aware of kind of sensation within the body, or kind of feelings within the body, and I wasn't sure that the sense of smell was different either way, but one, there was much more of an internal kind of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
energy process, which is maybe what you were saying about thinking happening. There's a body sensation attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
It felt, more like that. I could get that connection.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yes, so when we are our attention is in the object, the mind is quite occupied with creating the map of where things are, creating the imagination of the object, connecting that to the sense of smell, and then putting that sense of smell into the object, and kind of like building that model of reality. The smell is in the object. And so, as Wan Ching noticed, you didn't notice the smell as much because a lot of your, let's say, processing power, your conscious experience, was also simulating where the things are, and you're holding it, and there's the object, this kind of object, and blah blah blah, should smell like this, comparing the smell. But if you really separate the mind and from the feeling, the sensation of smell in the nose is probably more apparent, more strong, and that's really what mindfulness is doing. It's separating. Here is the sensation smell, and the rest is the thought. And if you had the mindfulness, then you can also notice also the other things which are appearing in the body. And then you see the thing that's separate. The nose is the sensation. The nose is separate from the idea of what thing I'm smelling and how it smells and where it is, etc. It's separate appearances and consciousness, but the mind puts it together into a story, into this continuous line thing. So, okay, it took longer than expected, but what I'm saying here is that the body and the mind always appear as a pair, and this is why I use this graphic here, yin yang thing, looks cool. But the heart is the mind, heart mind, and the body is body, and they're appearing actually always together. It's just that one is more prominent always. So, for example, with the thing that we just smelled, the nose appears, the sensation of the nose, and then the mind creates the recognition, the where it is, blah blah blah, appears kind of together as a pair. So in that case, it was the body leads the mind, but can also be the other way around. The mind can lead the body. So, for example, if some of you noticing in this past week, like your imagination, your visual thinking, your auditory thinking, your somatic thinking, the thought is first. So, for example, I say apple, your hearing recognizes apple, and then your mind creates image apple. What kind of apple you see? Red apple, green apple, apple logo, whatever. And then you see that image in your mind's eye, your third eye, whatever. So that appears again in your body. So the sight is linked to the mind. The mind creates the image of apple, and then you see it. Maybe just briefly, maybe you can notice it, maybe not. But this also happens with the hearing, with the sensation. And there's also always a sensation associated with thinking. So if it's something more neutral, it's usually more in the head, like, I'm thinking about this, imagining. You know, if we get headaches or we think too much, we feel, there's pressure in the head, maybe there's contraction, tension in the brain. If it's a more emotional thought, maybe in the heart, maybe in the belly. Different for everyone. But rather than when you're doing mindfulness of the mind, rather than putting it out there, like imagining is here, imagining is there, whatever, just put it in the body, in the framework of the body. And this will help you to observe more clearly the mind, because the body and mind appear together. And if you clearly identify the sensation of the thought, it will be easier to observe. And that's actually what starts to happen when we practice mindfulness a lot. We start to map more how the body and the mind is connected, and then we can observe more easily, because we simultaneously we relax the contraction in the head, which is maybe some unpleasant thought, and that physical contraction also helps to release the thought. I said that pretty quickly. If it doesn't make sense, it's okay. That's why the Goenka technique, actually, that's to your question, Mom, before wanting, that's why Goenka technique is actually also very powerful, because if you really have clear awareness of the body, you don't have to do mindfulness of the mind, because the mind appears on the body. And then you just get really good at doing mindfulness of where the thoughts appear on the body. And you also get really good at observing them as they appear and disappear. But we're going a little bit the other way around, like first observe mind and then connect the two.
So is that what is the significance, of that story you tell where some researchers went to a monastery and they wanted to measure the monk's brain or the head when they were meditating, and then these monks laughed and said, no, it's happening in the heart. So when you say, or when you're thinking and you can't locate in the body, put it in your head, shouldn't it be in the heart? I mean,
put it anywhere.
What does it mean? What does that story mean?
Yeah. The way I don't know exactly, but the way I interpret that is that there's also cultural layers here. So where we feel, we think is different in cultures. And in Thailand also, they think more in the heart. So they put the thinking in the heart. But actually, and it's also a trained thing, like where you train yourself to feel more, the mind associates. So it's actually, I don't think it's so innate. I think it's more like it's innate, but also learned, where we put our thinking. And in the West, we put our thinking always in the head. So most of the time we feel it also in the head. But of course, if it's more emotional, we feel it more in the rest of the body. So put it anywhere in the body. It doesn't matter, but keep it within the framework of the body. You can put it, don't put it outside of the body. Put it anywhere in the body, heart, head, wherever. If you feel it, then feel it there. If not, then put it somewhere.
And this week you asked us as a practice to sort of identify whether our thinking is visual or audio, or I can't remember what the third one is. Is there any relevance to that except to be aware?
When you it's a way of deconstructing the mind foundation. So it's like gives us a little bit more like a framework for the mind foundation, that it's like sometimes more visual, more auditory, more somatic. Like somatic means more like a feeling in the body. And it just helps us create more clarity in the mind foundation. And sometimes that can create more mindfulness power when we like recognize the visual. Like, let's say I'm worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow and thinking about this presentation or something, and then I just recognize that I'm playing the scene of what the presentation might be like in my mind's eye, and putting the mindfulness, it helps. It's like an anchor point. Like it helps us to observe that that's a thought that's happening right now. It's not the reality of tomorrow. So it helps, but it's not necessary. Actually, they don't teach this in the monastery. It's something that I take from another teacher. And so if it doesn't make sense, the see, hear, feel thing, then don't use it. Like a trick. Okay, there's like one more few things. Yeah, so sometimes body influence the mind, sometimes mind influence the body. Yeah, so maybe this seems complex or whatever, and it is actually, I'm using a lot of, when I'm making these slides, I'm using a lot of imagination and painting a picture, and then through my words conveying that picture to you, and then you have the picture in your head of what all this is, blah blah blah. But it's just a picture in your head, and that's why they have this saying, the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon itself. So the image, the imagination that we all just painted together is not the reality. The reality is happening right now to you, and we need to learn to mindfulness that. Sitting, seeing, hearing. So yeah, our task is mindful of body and mind the moment. This is the key concept of the whole course, just mind and body at the moment. So be careful when, so some things you can check your mindfulness. If there's a past or future, if there's this continued narrative, just recognize now. The moment is always now, and the appearance of mind body is always now. And if it feels you are elsewhere, like of course when we think about something, it feels we are really elsewhere. But that thought is always appearing here, and it's always appearing now. So you can ask, what now? What's here? It feels something is outside of you. The sound of the car is out there. If the thought is about someone out there, it's about the city which is over there, or whatever. If it's outside of you, careful. The thought is appearing within or on the body, maybe in your eye, maybe in your ear, maybe in your head, heart. And if you are disliking what's happening, if you are resisting what's happening, you feel annoyed, and just also recognize, that's happening here now. But if you can't mindfulness that, it's okay. It's the nature. We get annoyed, we get upset, we get unpleasant. I also regularly in my meditation face difficulties. It doesn't ever go away. It's the nature. Just meditation, this meditation is not about peacefulness. It's not about being happy. It's not about being super focused all the time. We are learning both the positive and the negative of experience. We're learning the paths that go towards suffering. We're learning the paths we go towards happiness. We are learning about all of it. So it's not about peacefulness. I will share a screenshot of this slide in the chat. That's a reminder. So sometimes, so this is another like little trick, something you can check, and this relates to what you were asking before, Maurizio. I think it was you. We did some mindfulness a little bit, but now there's something happening, a narrative. We forget to mindful. Maybe we are distracted. We are sleepy. We start dreaming, and then I was dreaming, and we just recognize dreaming, appearance of mind and body, and this I represents just mindfulness, not the sight, but we just see it, mind and body sleeping. Great, but then that's already gone. The next moment we might again create some narrative, and we have to be really careful when we start identifying with mindfulness, when we start to like for example, we are really mindful, and then we like that the mindfulness is happening, or we are worried about mindfulness not being good enough, or we are doubting the way we just are being mindful, or something like this. And then the mindfulness takes on feels like a character. So for example, Maurizio, what you were saying before, is I'm seeing a lot of things, but I feel overwhelmed. So then the mindfulness has taken on a narrative. The mindfulness is not mindfulness anymore, because it's I'm overwhelmed. I don't see the overwhelm. So we need to again take a step back. Overwhelmed, or unpleasant, or liking or disliking. So that happens often. start getting good at mindfulness, which happens, and then we need to also mindful the mindfulness. Like maybe we're identifying with some quality of mindfulness. So just keep seeing it. So we almost have to zoom out again. And yeah, be careful. And sometimes that gets really messy and complicated. And then we can just, if you don't know if you don't really have a specific label, like, this is thinking or worrying or whatever, I give you a little joker card now. You can use the label knowing. So if put it all in the box, you are just knowing that this is happening. You can't really describe it. Maybe it's some special state, you feel spacious or infinite, or you're overwhelmed, but you maybe can't find the words in the moment. Just you can say knowing. You know this is happening, and then again you are just mindful, and then maybe back to the body. So there's a little joker label you can use, but don't overuse it. Yes, okay. And then we have the life practice for this week. So now we covered the 3 foundations of mindfulness, which is all the experience, body, mind, and feelings. Now we start to notice more the patterns. So the Dhammas foundation, Dhammas means also mind objects. It's basically things that can, as we start practicing mindfulness, we start to notice. So for example, the hindrances, liking, disliking, worried, sleepy, or doubtful. Sometimes they kind of pollute the mindfulness or take this, mindfulness becomes a character and a story. Then just try to notice that mindfulness has some sense of liking to it, some sense of disliking. Maybe mindfulness is worried. Maybe mindfulness is a bit fuzzy, sleepy. Maybe you're mindful a little bit, but then you're doubting whether you're doing it properly. Just take a step back, doubting. So we're going to put a little bit more attention. We don't have to force this or something, but just keep these labels in mind that you can use. They are hindrances that appear in the first 3 stages of progress of insight. After that, they're not there anymore. But careful of these hindrances. But also not too serious with the life practice. Just you can notice in your daily life also when they happen, like, oh, I'm liking something. Oh, I'm disliking. Oh, I'm a bit worried. Oh, I'm a bit sleepy. Just notice them and see what comes. Yes. Okay. It's already 1 minute past, but if anyone wants to ask anything, I'm open. Actually, maybe let's close officially first with chanting, and then we can stay back a little bit to have Q&A in case anyone needs to leave. Closing the eyes. Feeling the touching hands, sitting. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sangam Namami. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, maybe have a few minutes if there's any questions to answer.
I was talking with Carla today about the walking meditation, and I was thinking, is it an option to walk in a circle, or do you really want us to have that moment where we stop, stand, turn?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
is it possible to just keep going in circles?
Better to have the line and then where you have to stop and turn, because sometimes the stopping and turning really interrupts what's happening, like, which is a good thing, because it's where it's sometimes it creates mindfulness, like we're caught in something, and if we have the option to continue walking, it sometimes goes into that flow, into that continuity more easily, and just stopping and now I have to stand, standing, oh actually I was thinking and I didn't recognize it, so that helps a little bit to interrupt the thing. So it's, yeah, walk in a line. Thank you, Marit. Bye-bye. Yes.
And the turning, when you've walked and you stop and then turning, sometimes I feel like it's such a short thing to turn from one face to the other. I almost feel like I haven't sensed turning and I need to keep turning. Would you then keep turning, or do you just go like, oh, I didn't get it in time, yeah, I noticed that?
You can slow down the turn. You can make you can actually like, you can do like turning, or you can like turning and then maybe just one leg, pause, standing, or maybe notice what else, turning another leg. Yeah. Now be careful when if you have to, because I know you have a very good physical practice, so probably your sensations and your body mindfulness of the body is already very good. So careful when you try to go too much into the physical, you will miss more mind, etc.
Yes, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Andreas. Carla?
Yeah. Dividing the steps more consciously now in 3 steps. There's the moment you are feeling and you're with your attention to the right foot at the end, and there I should really have a micro silence to switch to the other. Otherwise, I can't feel it. That's too much zoomed in. I don't know.
Yeah, you can just pause briefly, like kind of like, yeah, a little bit brief pause is always good between each noting of physical thing, like lifting, moving, lowering, touching, like just brief pause just helps to what the labeling is doing, it creates the pattern of begin and end. It actually helps us create this pattern of things are distinct things, which is a bit artificial in the beginning, but it creates this pattern of things begin and end. And it's good that you're noticing this, because it means actually now you're starting to pay more attention and becoming more aware of the beginning of the phenomena and the end of the phenomena, like where exactly does the phenomena end, where exactly does it begin. Maybe creating a bit of a pause there can help you, like new phenomena, now lifting, now left foot, blah blah blah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just one thing about the notes. Sometimes it feels like I can do it as a command, like it's a lifting. I'm telling my body to do it, lift it, move it, place it. And it feels like that's not, maybe I'm not on the right, approach then. And I should actually, I should be noticing what's happening. Is there a kind of an approach in that that's more...
Yeah, I understand what you mean. When I'm just simulating what would that feel like. careful that when awareness is more in the label than in the sensation. So make sure the sensation is
Yeah.
what's predominant, and the label is kind of like a whisper in the background. And the label it helps to sync the length of the label with the length of the physical thing, like moving, rather than, so syncing the length of the word in the head with the length of the thing helps.
Right.
And yeah, so that there's no delay, there's no the word first and then the movement or something, but they're really one and the same. And that helps also.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Good. I will try.
But yeah, right. But
I
also
will do.
notice if it becomes a topic that you keep like going into, like, am I now, is it command and then also recognize doubting thinking, so taking that step back.
Right.
Yeah, if it goes too much into.
Yes. Yeah. Good.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Have a good week. Good to see you.
Yes, you too. Nice
Very
background today.
useful. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yeah. I'm way out in Wales.
Alright.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.